Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Fedrid Folly. Our first player today is, was never quite sure how to pronounce this player's name, but either 1nprovize or 1nprovize. We'll stick with 1nprovize. He is playing as the Orc Kommando Nob. The Orc Kommando Nob is a sneaky orc, starts out with this big twinling shooter, very, very powerful, can infiltrate, also starts out with the stun bomb ability, and he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeves, even though he's not wearing something with sleeves. His opponent is Lieutenant Ekul, playing as the Warp Spider Exarch, a teleporting harassment hero, very good for resource disruption by decapping resource points, also very good for bleeding models off of ranged squads, or any squad really. So we got another 1v1 game, well, depending on the order that I choose to upload games, but this is interesting. Lieutenant Ekul is a player who... He was fairly new a few months ago, and he was someone who would ask to play 1v1 games with me, and I would play him, beat him game after game, and that was a few months ago, but he's been putting in work very recently. Played him again after not playing him for a few months, and it was pretty much the opposite. Instead of me beating him game after game, he beat me game after game, and I did not win a single game. So it just kind of an example. He was, a few months ago, he was a relatively new player. Trying to learn and trying to pick up this game, and he was putting in the work for playing the game. He actually was someone who preferred to play 1v1 over playing team games, and he put in the work, and it's showing in terms of how well he's playing. And also just an example of I know there are a lot of people who are watching the game who at the moment are not very good at it, or just haven't really bothered to get into it, mostly just watch. Just kind of let you know, like, that there are some players who are doing it, who are newer and who are practicing, doing the work that they need to get better at the game, such as Lieutenant Ekul here, and getting quite a bit better at it. 1nprovize is someone who he's a player. I think he's been playing a bit longer than Ekul. Was probably at least fairly decent at the game when Ekul was starting out. Although when I first played 1nprovize, I also felt he was, to be honest, a little weak. He definitely has worked on that too, and I'm saying that in part because I also played him too recently, and he beat me too. So, or it might just be me losing my edge, or never even having it in the first place. But to talk about the match, we got Orcs against Eldar. This is a matchup. Orc players have definitely complained about Eldar at some point, and definitely players of every race have complained about Eldar at some point, including Eldar players themselves. But we see that Lieutenant Ekul, right now he's going for, he chose not to get two power free squads. So we only got one squad of Dire Avengers and one squad of Howling Banshees. Did not choose to get, say, 2 Dire Avengers. And it's getting more common in the elite meta, particularly in 1v1, to get 3 squads at the start of the game that cost no power to put on the field. In part because they cost no power to put on the field, so you get more units on the field earlier, and consequently you get more map presence and control early on. Now, Lieutenant Ekul chose not to do that. He is using the Warp Spider Exarch, and there was a time, a co-cast with Tex, where he said that he feels that the Warp Spider Exarch is one of the better heroes for doing that, for not getting 3 squads right out of the gate, because you have this Warp Spider Exarch in the way he helps you make up for map control. We also see that Lieutenant Ekul got the advanced targeters. This improves the Warp Spider Exarch's range by 7, increases his range damage by 50%. Now, by 50% sounds like a lot. In a way, it kind of is. But the Warp Spider Exarch does not start out with that powerful damage. His starting range DPS is 24, which is decent. But it's certainly good enough for bleeding models. But so when he gets the improved targeters, that it should improve his damage to 36, which is actually more on par with the Kommando Nob, which is actually quite good. Also, it would make him very, very good for bleeding models off of, say, the Shooter Boys. Now here, I was actually surprised to see Lieutenant Ekul retreat his Warp Spider Exarch there and then lose his Warp Spider Exarch instead of teleport him out of there. 1nprovize going for a very long tier 1, choosing to get Storm Boys, and I think that might even in some ways be a necessity purchase. There has definitely been a time when Codex, a very good player, has said that Rangers almost forced you to get a jump unit. He specifically said this in the context of the against Space Marines, that Rangers force you to buy Assault Space Marines. So here I'm just kind of drawing an analog that 1nprovize is getting a jump unit. He's getting the Orc jump unit, I think, in response to these Rangers. Now, the Rangers can definitely do a lot of attrition damage. 1nprovize does, of course, have a one shoot a knob that he can use to detect the Rangers, but the Rangers, because they are Rangers, they can outrange the Shooter Boys, and once they take 2 shots, they'll bleed 2 models off the Shooter Boy squads. I think Orcs in particular can be very, very vulnerable to this just because of all of their starting squads, particularly the Shooter Boys and the Slugger Boys, are just going to bleed a lot from Rangers, and especially if you got 2 of them. I mean, there we have 2 Ranger shots right there, and not a whole lot that 1nprovize can do about that aside from jump those Storm Boys in, but there's not much he can do about actually getting shot. And I actually feel this positioning now is pretty risky for Ekul. He does have the... Alright, the Howling Banshees are now retreating out of there before anything really dangerous got in their retreat path. Did lose a model from the Banshees, and actually this is actually pretty risky. Depending on the angle that the Sluggers have right here, they might even be able to wipe the Banshees. That was very, very close. By then, the Banshees were running very, very fast, but overall, that was actually not a win for Ekul. Now, Ekul, he, very interestingly, he also did not get an aspect yet on his Howling Banshees. He does not even have yet the Pathfinder equipment. He is, however, losing on map control, which is interesting because the Warp Spider Exarch is generally known for winning in map control almost inevitably. Because he is the Warp Spider Exarch, because you're also playing as Eldar, which is generally the race that is one of, if not the strongest in map control, because you have faster average speed on your units to begin with. Most Eldar units have a base speed of 5.5, whereas most other races have a base speed of 5. Then, of course, there's the fact that they can, that most Eldar units also have the Fleet of Foot ability. Now, I like the choice of the Dire Avengers taking that garrison right there. The fight between... You know what? They would win against the Shooter Boys anyway, especially if they were in cover. But this just kind of seals the deal for them. Because then that's really the Shooter Boys just bleeding models, losing the engagement, without actually doing anything to the Dire Avengers in return. I mean, at least even if they would win a fight where they wouldn't use the garrison, they might also bleed models in the process. And that also reduces his field presence, and then he can bash the generators. And I like the way Ekul right here, choosing to bash generators, and 1nprovize either needs to make the choice. He's actually splitting his units right here so that he can deal with the generators. And I have a bet. I bet that Ekul will fleet his units back. Just fleet the Dire Avengers back once he starts getting shot at. Fleet? No? I was hoping to see that from him. Alright, no, he just retreats. I thought he was just going to fleet and run back here. Meanwhile, oh man. So, meanwhile, wow, Ekul's actually winning handily over here. So maybe he didn't bother fleeting back down there because he was more focused on the engagement up here. And this is very, very nice. And this is Ekul showing what he knows about his hero. Now, Ekul, again, a relatively new player, maybe not so much anymore, and he's actually going to wipe that that Ludo Boy squad. Maybe even take out this Kommando Nob. Probably not, though. But he's a player, he was relatively new, maybe he's not even so new at this point, but he also mains the Warp Spider Exarch, and I've only one time seen him play a hero who is not the Warp Spider Exarch, so he was a new player who was really dedicating himself to learning a specific hero. And I feel that when you're new at a game, if you want to get pretty good quickly and be able to play competitively quickly, I actually think it's a good idea to pick a hero, pick a character, and stick with it, and learn that specific hero and character at the start. Oh my god, very, very... Wow, wiped the entire Shooter Boy squad right there with that grenade. But yeah, he just dedicated himself to this one hero, learning how to play this one hero, and I think it's paying off in just terms of deciding to specialize early on, and then just being able to play that one hero very, very well. And I don't know if... I've only seen him play one other hero. I don't know if he maybe has a deeper base of hero or a deeper range of heroes than I know. but he certainly knows a lot about this Warp Spider Exarch. And the Warp Spider Exarch, it's almost like I was almost going to say like a forgotten art, but it's definitely something where people who main the Warp Spider Exarch really get way more out of the hero than people who just play him occasionally, because there are so many little things, so many things that he is uniquely good at. Well, maybe the Mech Boy does a lot of similar things, but there's just so many things with this Warp Spider Exarch. So he chose to get the Heavy Gauge Death Spinner, and that gives him an ability that's a lot like the full auto ability on the Apothecary. Basically, it does knock back as the Warp Spider Exarch shoots. Now, instead of being like the full auto ability, where it's an ability that lasts a specific set amount of time, it's kind of like a channeled ability where it just runs as long as the Warp Spider Exarch has energy. So you can knock back a single unit for a very, very long time. He actually used that as a counter to that Luda team, where he was hitting the main model with the knockback, preventing it from using that suppression weapon, which is just a very, very powerful use of that war gear. It's an extremely powerful war gear. And now here we see this is going to be a very dangerous fight, but I think the Banshees want to try to focus actually on the Storm Boys so that they can get their knockback. And before we saw very good use of the Banshees to counter-initiate against the Storm Boys because of the knockback that they do, and being able to defend against the Storm Boy jump against when the Storm Boys jumped in against their Rangers. And we still have these Rangers. Where are they? These Rangers. I don't even know where the Rangers are. The Rangers are probably in a webway gate that I can't even find, but here is one webway gate. But we see vehicle purchases from both players. 1nprovize has lost a lot of squads. We do have the Wraithlord out, as well as this Death Dread. And while the Death Dread has so little health, while the Wraithlord does not. And I think one of the reasons that is so is that when they were in that engagement, I think Ekul went for the Death Dread. That's why he did so much damage to the Death Dread. He went for the Death Dread with his Wraithlord as well as his Banshees. Meanwhile, I think 1nprovize was prioritizing other targets and didn't even really target the Wraithlord. Instead, I think he was targeting Ekul's Banshees with the Death Dread, and then he was jumping with the Storm Boys. And wow, I mean, we just see the damage that these Banshees are doing. Nearly taking out that Shooter Boy squad that was capping, basically just because everything popped out of this webway gate, and it was just more than it was really just more than the Shooter Boys could deal with. 1nprovize has actually lost quite a few squads. He's also lost a lot of power. Lost one Shooter Boy squad, almost lost that one as well, and lost one Slugger squad. He got a new Slugger squad because he really needs something to help him repair that Death Dread. And I think that's something that can be relatively tough for Orc players. Compared to many other starting squads, I think it is less desirable for Orcs to get multiple Sluggers than it is for most other races to get multiple repair units. Like compared to Chaos, Space Marines, Eldar themselves, and especially the Imperial Guard, all of those races actually want to have more of that starting squad that does repairs. Orcs less so, even though a double Slugger build can definitely work. Well, we have this Wraithlord running around, and I'm like just looking at Ekul's play, and there are a lot of interesting things that I'm noticing. Still did not get Pathfinder gear on these Rangers, and they are kind of idling. He got a Wraithlord out, did not choose to get a Bright Lance or a Shuriken Cannon. Although he is prioritizing getting the Wraithbone upgrade in Tier 3, but I was trying to point out that he's going relatively lean on a lot of his purchase choices, and he's getting to Tier 3. Now, 1nprovize is a little bit off of Tier 3, and he's also lost a lot of things, probably spending a little bit more on things. And we also see that Ekul has put out some webway gates. He's put one all the way on this side on the map and one all the way on this side. So I like the positioning of choosing to put two webway gates and on completely opposite side of the maps, and just what the implications that has in terms of Ekul's ability to control the map. Now, despite everything, Ekul has actually been relatively... well, he did have the map for a little bit. Now he's backing off. He's actually kind of doing nothing for a bit. But, he... yeah, I don't know. I just lost it. But anyway. Oh, and now we see the Kommando Nob, again, getting hit by that heavy gauge Death Spinner. And that's also just a very, very dangerous situation for heroes once they get knocked down. But we now have a Beamy Luda And we have the Warp Spider Exarch. Unfortunately, this was not a good teleport position for him. I think he's in retreat at this point. Probably because teleport was still on cooldown since he teleported in. He probably teleported in when he did not have line of sight, which is actually not very smart. And ultimately, Ekul is not coming out on the winning side of this engagement. And Rangers still just kind of walking around. But the purchase of the Wraithlord and the Death Dread, both players kind of got that out in Tier 2 as their main Tier 2 purchase. The implications of that, of course, the Death Dread is frequently gotten as a rushable vehicle for the Orcs, in part because it is so cheap, and because it also has flamers when upgraded, and that can be very good for bashing generators. However, head-to-head, it does straight up lose to the Wraithlord. I believe they actually do the same damage, but the Wraithlord does have more health. And then, of course, you can get a weapon upgrade like a Bright Lance, which would give you a bit of an edge over the Death Dread as well. Banshees do need to be very, very careful about at this point, though. And wow, I don't know where all that damage came from, but these Slugger Boys taking a huge amount of damage. I think those were Ranger shots, just instantly killing 2 of those models. And the Ranger use, although he's been very, very conservative with the Rangers, but at the same time, he's been doing so much with them. I mean, he took out the Stormboy Nob right there. Improvise is bleeding a ton, and yet at the same time floating a ton. And we might even see an Avatar pretty soon out of Ekul. Got to Tier 3, and now has almost enough resources to pull out an Avatar. And I think again, I'm going to quote like Tex here has definitely said something about how one of the things that's strong about the Warp Spider Exarch is how strong he is economically. Being able to get away with fewer units, being able to disrupt your opponent's economy, gain an economic advantage. And we see Ekul getting to Tier 3, and he's actually choosing to get a Fire Prism, which I'm actually not at all surprised by. When I played him recently, he just got that against me in every game that I played against him, and usually that's around the time that I lost the game. Because if you're actually not prepared to deal with the Fire Prism, and especially if you're too far behind in tech to be able to get things to deal with the Fire Prism, you actually kind of lose the game, because the Fire Prism can really prevent your squads from really doing things because of that knockback. If you don't have something to deal with it, it's going to prevent you from capping, and you're not going to be able to cap. It helps by winning engagement, by just disrupting your units every time. In this case, he could really, really keep the Storm Boys from doing anything when they jump in. I mean, look at the Ranger shots doing so much to this Slugger Boy squad, or the Shooter Boy squad right here. And now, wow, the Storm Boys jumped in to try to deal with these Rangers, and they actually just found themselves getting hit by a Storm Boy squad. Or rather, getting hit by a Wraithlord, totally derping right there. The Death Dread is moving in, but has to be very, very careful at this point. Again, pretty much going to lose straight up to the Wraithlord. I wonder if we'll see a Kommando Nob purchase on this Commando squad. Not yet. Improvise does not have the resources. He's going to go for a Burn-A-Bomb, and then unfortunately he was the Wraithlord went down. I'm not even sure how. Beam me Luda. There we go. But he tried to go for the Burn-A-Bomb into the Love Dadaka with the Commandos. Unfortunately, he didn't really have the element of surprise there. That's usually something that's done out of infiltration. You throw the Burn-A-Bomb, and then you hit with Love Dadaka, and then you just pin them inside that fire, and you can actually wipe some squads that way. But, I mean, in that particular case, it didn't work because he was trying to use it against the detector unit. So Ekul saw it coming, and he just retreated out of there before he could get hit by the knockback. That's what's very important. Now, Improvise is actually answering back with a huge amount of AV. So he really has so many different things that can do AV damage. He's also walking around with this lone Slugger Boy repairing this Death Dread, which is actually really, really dangerous, considering the Rangers could very, very easily take out that Slugger Boy. Warp Spider Exarch has now switched to the Power Blades. He's had that for a while, and he's been going for vehicles with those Power Blades. And he's teleporting in, and it's somewhat risky. He's probably hoping for a special attack, though. And he's also trying to take out, or at least force off that Looter Boy squad. And he even gets the teleport out of there very quickly. And one of the reasons I think one of the things... Oh, Fire Prism goes down there. I think one of the things that worked for Lieutenant Ekul in that sense is that he also has the enhanced warp jump generator, which reduces the cooldown of the teleport. And this is something I have noticed from the few times that I've tried to play the Warp Spider Exarch and not actually being a proficient Warp Spider Exarch player, is frequently finding myself in situations with the Warp Spider Exarch where I'm overextended because teleport is on cooldown. Basically just the teleport cooldown being a little bit longer than I expected for the Warp Spider Exarch, and then losing the Warp Spider Exarch because of that and not being able to teleport out the way I wanted to. Enhanced Warp Generator reduces the teleport cooldown so you can teleport more often. Teleport into a situation like that where, I mean, the Warp Spider Exarch was teleporting into the entire army, and then when he was kind of reaching his limits, he teleported out of there. Now, interestingly, we saw 2 Ranger shots, and they actually did not take out a single one of those Tank Busters. But, I mean, Tank Busters, they are at 850 health spread across 4 models. They are going to have 212.5 health per model. So a single Ranger shot is actually not going to take out those models. But still very, very effective. I mean, getting them down to half health, which can still be very effective for forcing the Tank Busters off, even if it doesn't necessarily bleed their models immediately. Love the Daka right there, trying to use as a way of slowing those Banshees down. Unfortunately, did not get all of them, so it's not really the Love the Daka ability. It's not really you don't really necessarily target a unit so much as you do target an area. And unfortunately, he missed most of those Banshees. He only got like 1 or 2 of them with the Love the Daka. He does, however, have the Nob right there. We can see it with that rocket launcher. And we even have the Kommando Nob. The Kommando Nob running around totally vanilla, but certainly one of the, I don't know. I was almost tempted to say one of the good things about Orcs is their AV. But I was going to more say just the amount of sources of AV that 1nprovize has and still has access to. He does have the Beamy Luda. He does have the Tank Busters. He's got the Commando with their rocket launcher. He can even get the Kommando Nob to have his own rocket launcher. But I guess he maybe just wants to keep that that Twinling Shooter, which is it's such a great starting weapon, and it's also kind of sad that you might actually have to forego it when you upgrade a weapon on that Kommando Nob, considering that starting weapon is really, really good. But I feel like the pace of the game is kind of slowed down, and things are going pretty slowly with only 100 VPs left for both players. Now, some interesting things about the Kommando Nobs. Right here we have Dire Avengers. They do not have... they're trying to throw some grenades at each other, and they both just kind of retreat, getting scared, playing chicken. But I would otherwise expect that the Commandos would win in a direct fight against the Dire Avengers, which, I mean, should be expected for a Tier 1 squad against a Tier 3 squad. But the Commandos actually do a lot of range damage out of their shooters, even though it looks like even though they technically carry the same shooter models as the... Oh my god, is this an Eldritch Storm? Let's stop talking about that. Let's talk about this. Oh my, I think we had I think the Shooter Boy squad went down right there. Either way, a lot of things just getting forced off. I mean, what a way to open an engagement with the Eldritch Storm, walking the Avatar in, and I think if nothing else, that just gives Lieutenant Ekul, buys him some time at a time when he doesn't have too much time. Ooh, but this positioning is not so good. Switch back to the heavy gauge Death Spinner, going to lose the Warp Spider Exarch if he does not teleport out now. Might even lose it if he does teleport. Teleports out and does not lose it. Very, very good reflexes. But now the Death Dread is in trouble. So that Eldritch Storm, aside from just forcing all those units off, as well as wiping a Shooter Boy squad, that also got put 1nprovize in a situation where it left his vehicle overextended and without support. Meanwhile, back over here, we have more units coming out of the webway. Lieutenant Ekul actually kind of backed up against the wall with only 43 VPs left. He's forcing melee, or probably not even watching this fight, because he's probably watching this fight over here, where he's trying to take out a Death Dread, and probably might even lose his Banshees against the Storm Boys. No, so he does lose the Banshees. That's not good for Ekul, and he might actually lose the game right here. Here we go with the Wailing Doom. Oh no! Improvise not paying attention. The Storm Boys just get wiped out entirely, I believe. And, I mean, the Commandos, a little bit tougher, did not get wiped out, but, I mean, they still got hit. I think Ekul right here going to be able to get a decap off, get a double cap. There's a Rocks! Oh, and that's actually a really, really good choice. Instantly wipes a Ranger, I think. Instantly wiped a Ranger. And I don't know if Ekul can actually come back from this. I mean, he's actually about to get a cap right here. Yeah, all right, he'll probably get this cap at least. Oh man, this is scary. We're gonna see. That's got to be a another Commando call in, and they're probably gonna take out that Lone Ranger. That Lone Ranger. Oh man, I wonder if you guys even get that reference, because just knowing that much of my audience is not American. The Lone Ranger was just some old, really, really old, like before I was born, probably before any of you were born, like TV show or something about a cowboy or something. But anyway, I think all of the abilities for this avatar are on cooldown, so he could not really get these commandos off the point despite being right there. I think he was getting a sync kill on something, probably a commando model. Or, yes, you got a sync kill on a commando model. Only 5 VPs left for... Wow, beautiful by Ekul. Uses that heavy gauge Death Spinner again to not only kill the commando, the Nob on the commando squad, as well as even getting them off the point. But, oh man, this 50% faster capture speed, that is very scary. And now, I mean, we also have the problem with this avatar being pretty low on health. The Commando's actually answering back with a little knockback of their own. But at this point, that means they're also not capturing, but they're also trying to capture. Oh man, and Improvise actually has to retreat. Because this Fire Prism. So now we have a new Fire Prism back. We also have a new Death... Is that a new Death Dread? No, that's the same Death Dread that Improvise has had all game. So he's managed to keep this Death Dread alive quite amazingly. And the Death Dread might even threaten to take out the Avatar. And, oh, the Fire Prism is actually targeting the Death Dread. And here we go already with, we do have that missile launcher upgrade, but man, he's not getting to do anything because, again, that heavy gauge Death Spinner, a very, very powerful war gear, I think even going to take out this Commando Nob. And right now, I think Improvise can't even retreat. Yeah, I think he couldn't even retreat there because I think once you get knocked down, wow. We have 2 vehicles out on the field for Ekul. He does not even have any repair support whatsoever. Now he has a Bright Lance on his Death Dread. And we have double Commando squads, but they have no Nob. I don't think Improvise can even afford one. And without that, we're just going to switch to the Dispersed Blast for the Fire Prism. And I don't even think there's much that Improvise is going to be... there's not much that Improvise is going to be able to do. And the Commando's just trying to open fire, and I mean, these 2 Commando squads, they're going to be doing a lot of DPS, but might not be enough. Now this could actually be a slightly risky situation, but at the same time, I think Improvise has got this. I don't actually think there's a whole lot Improvise can do. He's actually going for the cap over here, but he's still... I don't think he's actually going to be able to get it up in time. I think he can get the decap off in time, but I don't think he can actually get the cap in time. He might actually be able to get the cap down with his own commando. You know what? I think that's it. I don't think there's enough time. It's 1 to nothing for Ekul. Improvise is getting decaps, but he's not getting caps. He needs to literally decap everything if he wants to stay in this game. He needs to literally decap everything, and I don't think he's going to get the time. Is that another Eldritch? We have it. Oh my god, the Eldritch taking out taking out like 8 commandos, and whoa, I didn't even realize that. So Improvise actually won it, actually got the Storm Boys together. I thought Ekul was going to get that. But yeah, wow, so obviously a pretty incredible game, good game to both of these guys. Apparently both of these players really stepping it up. Improvise just barely managed. I mean, what incredible persistence by both players. Definitely both of these guys definitely got at least a little bit of the champion mindset. And again, Ekul is someone who definitely months ago he was a relatively new player, asking me to play him, and I just beat him game after game, and not anymore. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.